This is the I think the fifth or sixth episode. Maybe it's the sixth episode in healing after narcissistic abuse. We're going to be talking about self-awareness today, self-attunement, and I'm super excited about this. Honestly, I think this is my favorite topic of the whole group, partly because I think it's the area that I had the most trouble with, and I'll tell you why. And I also see that it's a way that we connect intimately with other people. You have a powerful relationship when there's emotional vulnerability, and without that kind of connectedness in a relationship, it will really suffer and feel shallow or mediocre, or just it'll leave you lonely. Honestly, it'll leave you lonely if that's missing in the relationship. So self-awareness, emotional attunement is critical to a healthy relationship, and it is also a critical part of our healing. When we've suffered something traumatic, one of the things that typically happens is that we shut down emotionally. Um, we become either triggered by everything, so that we then cloister ourselves in the world because everything feels scary and toxic, or we end up we just go numb and we check out everywhere on everything, and we lose a connectedness with ourselves. So this is a critical piece to recovering our wholeness, is recovering our emotional connection to ourselves. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm super excited about this. So if you would please share this video today so we can get some people into the room, that would be awesome. For those of you who aren't familiar, just tap on the screen on TikTok, and that's how you share it. And it's easy elsewhere. You can see how you can share elsewhere. So thank you so much for that. I'm Dr. Kerry Kerr McAvoy. I'm a licensed psychologist with over 20 years of counseling experience. And I'm also a narcissistic abuse survivor and a repeat survivor. I don't know if I don't have CPTSD, I don't believe. I certainly have conditions of PTSD. I'm also autistic, which adds another layer of nuance to my trauma and how I got traumatized. And we need to dig into that. I know that at our last week, when we got into these topics, there was a lot of interest in what those with neurodivergence, whether it's ADHD or autism, why are they a little more vulnerable to being victimized? So certainly we want to get into this. So let me describe what we're going to do today, and then we'll talk. We're going to do a self-awareness exercise in the middle of today's live. We're going to start out with talking about why say it again. We're going to start out by talking about why self-awareness is so important. And then we'll end it with your questions, what it was like for you, what you discovered, maybe what didn't make sense to you. So we'll kind of circle back. And thank you so much. I know that there's more people coming in, and let me introduce myself again. I'm Dr. Kerry Kerr McAvoy. I'm a licensed psychologist with over 20 years of counseling experience, and I'm super excited that you're here. So emotional attunement and self-awareness. Why in the world does it matter? So I listed some, like off the top of my head, several reasons why this is important. And I know for men, for those of you who are male in the audience, I know that you get a lot of comments or instructions or socialization growing up that tough men don't cry, tough men don't feel. But let me kind of unpack why emotions are important, why emotional attunement is so critical. Well, first, makes you better at a communication. Can you imagine going into a store saying that you want to buy a certain tool, but then when you proceed to try to define it, you can't? You can't really identify what it does, or how it's effective, or how it's going to improve your life. How do you then supposed to find the tool? Well, emotional attunement is really essentially saying that you know what you're feeling, you know how you're experiencing something inside. And it's actually quite a complex process. It means that you identify an internal experience, that you have words for how it's making you feel. You also, at the same time, have to figure out how you're going to regulate it, because you can go all the way to saying, I don't even know I have a feeling, to losing it and trashing a house. That would be called dysregulated emotional expression. And then you also then have to be aware of how the other person opposite of you is experiencing you. How many times have we heard from someone say, are you upset? And we're like, no, I'm fine. And maybe I'm thinking a lot, but I'm fine. I'm like, well, you look bored, or you look angry, or you look really sad. So there's what we experience inside, but there's also what we convey on the outside. And we have to be aware of how other people around us are experiencing us. So that's all part of a good communication, because you can't communicate something's bothering you if you first don't recognize that it's bothering you. Secondly, you don't know how to put it into words that it's bothering you. And then you don't convey it in a way that the other person hears, oh, this is important. This needs to be addressed. Because how many times have we all known that we may say something, we think we're being direct about it, and they're like, well, I just thought that was an option. I mean, you didn't say it had to be that way. I just thought you were expressing an opinion. So are we able to actually communicate what it is that we want and how we want it? So that's the first reason why this is really important. The second reason is because it nurtures relationships. Emotional attunement, self-awareness nurtures relationship. How does it do that? Well, one of the things that they found, and this came out of a big study with Dr. Gottman, John Gottman and his wife, did this massive look um, at healthy relationships, and they actually looked at a predictive model to figure out which relationships were more at risk of not making it. Believe it or not, could you believe in that study, they were able to predict upon meeting a couple and doing this assessment with 90%, over 90% accuracy, of whether your relationship had the wherewithal, the healthy stuff to let it to survive, or whether or not there was danger signs inside of it that's probably going to erode it and lead to its failure. It's creepy, scary stuff. So one of the things that came out of this study was it was called emotional bids. So let me define what an emotional bid is. And again, this how connect and how this has emotional attunement. We are born for connection from the moment we are conceived. We're always in a relationship with another person, and we are social creatures that depend upon this connection. In fact, the third most biggest drive in our life behind survival and safety is belonging. We're just wired for it. We're even automatically, our healthiness is wired for belonging. So in a relationship, you want to have connection with your partner. And what you do is you make what's called an emotional bid. It might be simply that you're trying to tell a joke and you hope that they would listen. Or maybe you came across a really powerful piece of news and you call them up or text them to tell them. Or maybe you're like hinting that you want something more tonight. Or maybe it is just that you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you glance over at them, and they know that glance is a wish for you to say, oh yeah, you look really beautiful today, or look really handsome today. All of that is called an emotional bid. So what they found was that marriages that were healthy turned towards each other. They didn't ignore these bids. They saw them and responded positively over 80% of the time. So in other words, nearly three-fourths of the time, actually more than three-fourths of the time, more than three-fourths of the time when they were aware their partner was requesting some kind of connectedness, even indirectly, non-verbally, whatever, they were aware of it and they responded positively. The marriages that failed, the divorce that ended in divorce, responded only positively 33% of the time. So and here's the other fascinating part they found out about emotional bids. It doesn't matter if you ignore it or if you reject it, the experience is the same. So if you're telling me a joke and I'm like, yeah, I can't right now, that's ignoring it, or that's actually not right rejection. Or if you're telling me a joke and I pretend you didn't hear you, that's ignoring. They found that those were registered the same. They were as powerful as each other, and that was a negative response. That was found to be negatively correlated with a healthy relationships. So emotional attunement is important because we need to be aware of where we are, what's going on inside of us, how we're feeling, our availability to our partner, so we can show up and nurture the emotional connection with a partner, to nurture the emotional intimacy between people. So that's the second reason why emotional attunement is important. By the way, thank you so much for joining me. Please like and share this. I'm Dr. Kerry Kerr McAvoy. I'm a psychologist, and today we're doing a guided experience on emotional attunement and self-aware, and we'll do it in a few minutes when I get done explaining why it's important. Okay, third benefit, it makes you better at conflict resolution. So why does knowing how you feel make you better at resolving problems? Well, nobody ever likes to have an issue brought up. I don't care how innocuous it is. When someone brings up something to you, you feel a little personal. It feels it affects you, it ties into you. And as a response, you're going to have a reaction to that. If you don't know you're reacting, if you don't know that you have a feeling, chances are that's going to go sideways. You're going to respond in a non-helpful way. You may become defensive. You may even maybe not hear the problem correctly. You may react inappropriately. So part of self-awareness is so critical because it helps prepare you to know what it is you're feeling, and then gives you the opportunity, not control, but at least gives you the opportunity to respond in a different way. If you're unaware, then you're not aware that you're being upset, or this is feeling uncomfortable, or maybe making you feel ashamed. And you're more likely then to react in an uncontrolled, maybe even in a provoked way that will just set things wrong. So that's why it's so helpful with better conflict resolution. And there's another reason why it's helpful too. It also gives you the opportunity that when your partner responds back, when there's this back and forth, that you can keep checking yourself so you can know how you're feeling, why you're feeling that way, and then you can make some choices. Do I want to act on that feeling? Do I want to acknowledge it and own it that's happening between us? I mean, what can I do around this to make this go more effectively? But if you're not self-aware, and if you are not aware of what emotions you're going to feel, then you're going to lose that. Next thing you know, you'll have this effort to sort of resolve something divulge into an argument, worse, a fight. That's why self-awareness is really important. That's why emotional attunement is critical. So what is it? Let's define. What is self-awareness? I found this great article. And by the way, everyone who knows that I'm always updating a reference list. If you're curious of that reference list, it's on the link in my bio. And every week, at the end of the week, I update it with all the research that I'm coming across and using. So if you'd like the articles to this, please view that reference list to know where am I getting this information from. So there are 3 levels of self-awareness. I love this. I thought this was great. It's put out by Mark Manson. MarkManson.net had this on his site. He says we should ask ourselves, what are you doing? So when you're asking yourself to become more self-aware, you ask, what am I doing? How am I feeling? And what are my blind spots? Okay, like blind spots. How are you supposed to know what your blind spots are? Okay, your blind spots are you're going to have to be careful around your memories because your memories are unreliable and from your vantage point, and it may not necessarily agree with what exactly happened. Research has shown, believe it or not, people can see the same event, and there's many people who's witnessed that event. You'll have different versions of that event. We don't typically see things exactly the same way. So the second blind spot is we always put ourselves in the best light. They did this study that you've seen it. I know you've seen it. Like teachers used to probably did it in your classroom. They'll ask you, what grade do you think you deserve? Well, what they found is whenever they asked people to rate themselves, I think they had a group of realtors, and they asked the realtors, how good are you at selling real estate? Everybody says they're B plus or better. Really? No, it's a bell curve. You have people who are average, you have people who are below average, and you have people who are above average. Everyone's not a B plus or better, but we like to think of ourselves positively that way. So we're going to overestimate our abilities. So there's our second blind spot. The third blind spot is when you're confronted, when someone comes at you and says, no, that's not the way it should be done, or I don't like it, or can you do it differently? Generally, we react defensively. That's our first gut reaction. And we typically double down. So chances are, if you're in a situation where you're feeling a little not safe, you're going to lose you're going to lose your objectivity because you're feeling put on the spot. I saw this at the office. Sometimes I would work with a client, and then the client's partner would see one of my colleagues, and my colleague and I would do case conferences. And I'll tell you, we would spare if the couple was fighting, you could see us we'd take the corners. We're what's that word when they square off? Yeah, we'd square off. Wait, why are we feeling defensive? We're both trying to help this couple, but it's weird how you do that. There were third reasons we have blind spots is because you have pre-existing beliefs. Everyone does. You may not be aware of them, but it doesn't mean they're not there. You may have an assumption. There was a study that was done years ago, and I would love that it would be replicated. And I found it. I found the reference, and I actually took classes from this professor. He gave a list of descriptors, and he asked people, I think college students, check the descriptors that define a healthy male. This is in the 70s, by the way. 70s, okay? Remember, 70s. Define the adjectives that define a healthy male. And they check things like confident, self-assured, just the typical descriptors. Then they said, check the descriptors that define a healthy female. And then they asked them, check the descriptors that define a person who has mental health issues. Okay, so what came back was women were perceived as weak, unsure, lacking confidence, not good in leadership, and they matched closely to the descriptors of a mental health patient. Men, however, were perceived as strong. So if you came out of the 70s or earlier, you may have that bias. You may not realize you have that bias, but you may have that bias. You may have other biases, so that's why it's really important for us to know ourselves, to know the biases that we come in with. One of my biases, I'm kind of like pull up by your bootstrap person. So when I hear somebody who's struggling and I doesn't feel like this, maybe they've put the same efforts than I haven't, I recognize I can be a little judgmental. So I gotta watch that about myself. So it's really important for you to know, where are your biases? Where are your pre-existing beliefs? And number 5, we all lie to ourselves from time to time. We don't like to admit that we're flawed, and we like to put ourselves with the best foot forward. So we're not going to always admit exactly something, especially if we think it's sort of negative or shameful. And the third is, we're terrible at cost benefit analysis. Now, what does that mean? I know it's that's a big term. It means that when we're looking at payoffs, like which is a better risk and which is a worse risk, we tend not to see it logically. We tend to really struggle with those moments. You want a great example of that? Go watch Let's Make a Deal game show. If you can get the replays, or I think they've redone it and there's now out again. People will make the worst guesses. They'll make assumptions that they shouldn't have made based upon other assumptions that they shouldn't be making. And there's all sorts of research that's been done at that. So 3 levels of self-awareness. Let's back up. By the way, I'm Dr. McAvoy. So wonderful that you're here today. We're going to do, a few minutes from now, we're going to do a emotional attunement exercise. But there's 3 ways to become more self-aware. Recognize what you're doing. What are you doing? Not just what am I doing physically, like I'm washing the dishes, but what are my intentions? What are my motivations? What do I want out of this? Then recognize, how are you feeling? And recognize what might be blind spots in this particular situation. And they vary from situation to situation. So 2 more things I want to share. Actually, 3 more things I want to share. And then we're going to do a guided experience of the emotions, okay? Did you know that there was such a thing as, I call them screen emotions? That's the way I was in graduate school. That's the way I learned it. They may call it something different. What do I mean by that? So I'm going to give you guys, again, I'm going to urge you to go to that reference list, because I have 2 handouts for you on emotions. It gives you a big list of emotions. And one of them was done by a guy called by the name of Tom Drummond, has a fantastic internet free access. He's allowing open use of this gorgeous list of feelings and emotions. So I want you to go get that when we're done, because this is really, really important. But what they've found is, when you look at that whole list of emotions, chances are there's only a few of them that you're actually comfortable experiencing. You're probably not very, shame, by the way, is the most painfully tolerated emotion of all. So chances are you probably don't like it when you feel shame. You probably really move fast away from that feeling. Maybe for some of us, grief's really hard to feel. We don't like to feel loss. Or maybe you find it really uncomfortable to be jealous, or you hate being angry, or whatever. But we all have emotions that we just don't feel comfortable with. And what happens is we submerge them below the emotions that we are more comfortable with. So chances are, if you stop and think about, I'm going to ask you, stop and think about, what emotions are you generally pretty comfortable with? Like, what emotions do you readily express with your friends? Maybe readily express with your children, your partner, maybe with family. I know for me, I'm okay being sad, but I would love to know, are you okay being angry? For me, is hard. I don't like being angry publicly. So that would be one of mine. I would kind of to anger, but pay attention to the ones that you struggle feeling or being comfortable with or liking to feel. Now, Next, and by the way, I want to add this. If you're a guy who's watching this, one of your emotions may be sexual desire. You may feel totally comfortable with feeling interest, sexual interest in somebody, but when it comes to being, sad or maybe even, lonely, chances are you may be submerging that one behind underneath a sexual interest. So be aware that sometimes these emotions could be somatic feelings. It could be hunger. Sometimes we're hungry emotionally and we feel as hunger physically. And then that we tend to want to eat as a way to satisfy the emotional feeling. Another important reason why self-awareness is so helpful is that we have any type of habits, whether it's how we handle what we eat, drink, what we experience, what we use, what we do, anything that could be habitual or addictive. Doing this can help you with this, would help you kind of defeat this. So, so pay attention. What are your screen emotions? And what I want you to do is when you next time you feel that screen emotion, whatever it is that you're comfortable feeling, ask yourself, what else could this be hiding? What other emotions might be beneath this? Well, if I feel insecure, chances are I'm probably angry. And that the insecurity is what I feel comfortable admitting to feeling, but I don't feel so comfortable admitting that I'm pissed off. So chances are that for me would be a screen emotion is or if I'm sad, it may be that I feel ashamed or I'm feeling jealous and I may not feel so comfortable with shame or jealous. So I convert it and move it into what I'm more comfortable with, which is sadness. So pay attention to how you may be doing that. Here's another thing that makes us not good emotionally aware of feelings, and that's called alexithymia. Have you ever heard of the term alexithymia? I'll spell it for you. Alexithymi, alexithymia. What that means is a fancy way of saying, I don't know what I'm feeling. There are, believe it or not, about 12% of the population who's not very internally self-aware. And one of the reasons why is they may have a low EQ, low emotional intelligence. They could be autistic. They might have ADHD. They might be narcissistic. But there are certain conditions that tend to make us not as aware of their feelings. I know, you're probably like, really? You're going to tell this over the whole world and admit to it? I have a little bit of this. So when I'm really upset, I mean, like really upset, and I have a lot of emotions going, I often have to take a day or two to know what I really feel. I have to sit with it. So I can't respond right. I've learned I need to slow down, take the time, and wait to figure out what it is that I'm feeling before I come back and do anything with it. Because chances are, if I do something too quick, I may not have fully responded in a way that was the most protective of myself and the most honest about how I'm experiencing what's happening. I may be nice because I don't know what else to say because I don't know how I feel. I just feel literally in the worst moments when fight and flight's going on, I feel blank. I don't feel anything. I just feel like I'm shocked, but I don't know what else I feel. I don't know if I'm offended. I don't know if I'm enraged. I don't know if I'm horribly betrayed. I don't know. All I know is that I'm really upset and I just don't know how I feel. So I've learned I have a little bit of this and that I just need to take the time to give myself space to know how I feel. Here's another reasons why people struggle with self-awareness is because we don't know what to do with what we feel. Because feeling something means we have to regulate it. And we get afraid that if I start to feel things, then I'm going to act up and do really stupid, crazy shit. So it's just better not to feel it all because then it doesn't put me in the position of having to do something with it. But I want to tell you that's not true. You're going to be emotionally dysregulated, whether or not you're aware of what you're feeling or if you're not aware of what you're feeling, because emotional regulation is a skill. We need to learn how to. It was really hard. I'll tell you what strengthened the emotional regulation for me was a period of right after leaving the narcissist, and my son is ill with leukemia, and we're moving into COVID, and there was literally no one I could talk to about what was happening. No one. And I would have these great, huge fears, like almost panic attack level fears. And I had to like show up for myself. I had to learn that I could sit with it, that it was survivable, that I wasn't going to overwhelm me. And I found that as I just sat with it, that I could survive it. And I didn't know that. It took the experience of it to know that coming to the end of myself like that really helped me to know that I could do this. It actually like was almost like working out muscles. It was forcing me to learn new skills with myself. So a part of good self-awareness is learning how to regulate ourselves emotionally. So, all right, that takes us up. I know I've talked a whole bunch and I've packed in a solid bunch of material for a half an hour of talking here. What I want to do now is I want to help you become more socially or more emotionally attuned, more more self-aware. So, we're going to this is an exercise I'm making up on the fly because there's not like real good like how to do this like this. This is a difficult form to do this. So I'm going to use our breath work that we've been using the previous weeks. And if you guys want to review that breath work, please view the longer content. You know what platform I'm talking about where we house longer content. There is a playlist that lists all of them. So if you want to go back and learn how to what does it look like to ground yourself? What does it look like to center yourself? And how do you emotionally relax? If you like, or what's breath work? If you'd like that, please refer to that playlist on the longer content platform. But what we're going to do today is I want you to sit back, okay, with me, and then listen to me and tune in. And I want you to tune into yourself in a non-judgmental way, with curiosity. You're just going to listen and notice. Maybe you do want to keep something you can take notes on, because I'm going to ask you to pay attention to a couple levels: what's happening in your body, and I'm also going to ask you what's happening to you, what you're noticing, what you're observing about yourself, what you're feeling. Okay, so we're going to do this kind of in a variety of ways, but you don't need to shut your eyes, but I'd really like you to kind of not so much watch me, but really tune into yourself, however that helps you. And again, for those who are just joining, I'm Dr. Kerry McAvoy. I'm a licensed psychologist, and we're working on self-awareness. This is a guided emotional attunement exercise. Okay, so kind of lean back and get comfortable. And you want your eyes closed or eyes shut, whatever makes you feel comfortable. I want you to just feel relaxed. And I want you to take a deep breath with me and then let it out first. All right. Let your shoulders drop, let your arms rest. And I want you to take a breath in with me now. And hold it and let it out. Let's do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, hold and exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is called boxed breathing, by the way. You inhale to a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You hold. And then you exhale to the count 1, 2, 3, 4. Just keep breathing nice and slowly like that. You inhale if you want through your nose, and if you want to, you can blow out through your mouth if you feel safe and if you're in a comfortable, safe environment that allows that. But just relax, let your back sit against the chair. Your hands are nice on your lap or on the desk. Your feet are firmly on the floor and comfortable. And you're taking this moment out for you. This is your space and your time. And there may be a noisy environment, but you're going to ignore it and you're going to focus on my voice instead. And you're just going to breathe slowly with nice, slow inhales, hold, and then exhale. And then inhale, hold, and exhale. All right, as you're relaxing and you're feeling safe and you're feeling like you're able to be here and listen to me, I want you to take an inventory of your body. Just allow yourself to scan over from your top of your head, down over your face. Notice your shoulders and upper chest, your arms, your gut, belly, your pelvis, your hips, your glutes, your quads, your hamstrings, your calves, down to your feet and out through your toes. Where are you feeling? Is there a place somewhere in your body that's feeling tense? Maybe it's sore today. Or as you did that mental scan, maybe you lingered over an area. What area did you linger over? Is something feeling uncomfortable or bothering you? Maybe you've been clenching it and you haven't realized that it's tight and sore. I want you just to sort of make a mental note, or maybe you want to write down what it is that you noticed, but just hold that awareness of that. And then I want you to be aware just right now, listen to yourself and ask, what am I feeling right now? Now, some of the easy answers may be, I'm hungry. It's lunchtime. Maybe you haven't eaten. Maybe I'm tired. Maybe today is Thursday and you've had a long week. Maybe it is you feel a little overwhelmed. Maybe it's Thursday and you haven't gotten what you wanted done this week. But I want you to note those things and then move them aside. Now, what are you feeling underneath those feelings? Just take a moment and listen to them. And there's no right or wrong answer. Any answer is your answer. You can start by asking yourself, do I feel safe? And if the answer is no, you can then start to say, what doesn't feel safe? And what makes me not feel safe? Maybe the other way to ask this of yourself is to say, do I feel content today? And then answer that with more feelings about contentment, whether it's discontentment or good contentment. Or maybe you can ask yourself, is there something that's bothering me? It might be related to stress. Maybe it's related to a recent conversation you had. Maybe it's an expectation that you're feeling. Or maybe that's something that's happened and you have feelings about what happened. Again, just be curious about that and notice what you're feeling around that. Ask yourself, how are you feeling about your relationships? And let the people's faces come up in your mind. How's it going with your family, with your children, with your partner? Are you feeling the way that you want to feel with them? Are you feeling like you can show up yourself? How's it going with friends? Are there kind of relationships you've been looking for? Is there something feeling a little different or off? How's your work relationships going? How's work going? How does that make you feel? When you walk into the office, how do you feel about yourself in the office, or when you meet with clients, or when you meet with your coworkers? Is there an area that is keeping you up at night or waking you up? Maybe you're dreaming about it. You might find a dream log helpful. Dream logs can share themes like running away from something, failing at something, or having things go wrong, or disappointing, or feeling embarrassed. A dream log can help you sort of see patterns in that. Is there anything else about your life? How are you feeling about yourself? What kind of words come up when you think of yourself? Are there areas that you're feeling strong and competent? Maybe there's areas you feel uncomfortable that make you feel insecure or less than in some way. Again, just take a note of what those are so that you can revisit them. So if I had to ask you, I'm going to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being, I've never been more content in my life, and 1 being, I have never been more upset or unhappy with my life, where would you put that number today? Where would that number be a month ago? Where would you like that number to be in 6 months from now? And what is it that you need to do? What's one small thing that you can do to help make that happen? A little more likely to happen in 6 months from now. Okay, so let's take another deep breath and let it out. Another one. Hold it and let it out. Okay, and then just sort of wiggle your fingers and toes, and then let's come back and let's talk about what we just did today. I'm super curious of what you thought, what you learned today. whether or not you thought it was helpful, whether or not you've ever asked yourself these kinds of questions. I'm super curious what your experience was like. All right, I want to make sure I'm going to move the screen on TikTok just so I can see what you're saying, guys. Okay, so what did everybody think? I'm super anxious to hear what you think. Yeah, Fierce Girl, you liked it. What did you love about it? By the way, if you like this is the stuff I'm going to be doing in my new club. Effectively, April 3rd, this live on Thursdays will not be happening anymore. It will be held inside my membership club and exclusive for membership. I'm going to be doing this type of deep relaxation, deep breathing. We'll be doing more attunement. We'll be doing all sorts of this kind of stuff to a lot of this in the club. So if you find this helpful, I really hope you'll check out the new membership club. It's going to be for the less than a cost of having one counseling session with me, certainly less than that one counseling session with me a month. So less than one coaching session, the cost of that, you'll be able to do all of this and more inside that club. So super hope you check it out. So yeah, I'm starting to see the comments come in. Thank you so much for you guys sharing what you thought. So Chantel, you thought it was really calming. I love hearing that. So Garth, you said and so good to see you, Garth. You said you couldn't answer any of the questions. I would love to know how you felt about that. Were you surprised? Did it surprise you? Was that new information? I guess is really what I'm asking. Was that new? I know for me, the narcissist in my life like to say, you should have brought it up in the moment. If you didn't like XYZ, then why didn't you say so? Well, it took me learning that I didn't know what I thought in the moment for me to learn to say, I can't respond in the moment. I won't respond in the moment. It really helped me to know that about myself. It gave me, I now build in a buffer to say, actually something really big happened about a month and a half ago. And in the moment, they said, you're really, really quiet. Well, I was really, really quiet because I was giving myself the space to figure out how I felt. And I did respond. About 18 hours later, I came back and wrote this big, long response to what I thought and felt. But I didn't know. I had to sit on it. So it's to be continued, said it's helpful. You were able to reflect between the day as opposed to at night, oh yeah, that's right. You're right. This is helpful. You're right. It will take it off the plate so you don't struggle over this as you're falling asleep, which is the last time you want to be thinking about this. So yeah, that's good that you have it. Yeah, Chantel, you heard that too? Exactly. I know. They love to do that. They really love to do that. So yeah. So Fierce Girl, I like the questions. They're thought-provoking. And Just My Chatter says, it felt good. I'm close to North Carolina, and it's helpful to close my thoughts and listen to you. Yeah, Fierce Girl said, oh, yeah, it was. So Brittany said, I thought it was focusing. I felt all over the place, and it helped you kind of channel down and focus more. It's Kate said, I don't feel anger. I fawn. Why do I feel this, and why isn't this bringing up sadness for me? That's interesting. The reason we fawn, this is why. I have a good reason why I think, hey, it's Kate, what's happening. When something's startling, like traumatic is, if you're startled, let's just start there. If you're startled, it means it's traumatic. Okay? Means you're shocked. So your initial reaction to shock is to go into survival mode, which you'll kick into fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. That's survival. It is not productive for the neocortex to go into what am I feeling and why do I feel? That's actually coming out of the center part of the brain, and I'm blocking on the word. It's the emotional center of the brain. It's actually is close to the neocortex. And yeah, feelings probably are going offline when you're in state of shock because you're in a state of survival. That's why you don't know what you're feeling. You will know after the shock wears off what you feel. So in the moment of shock, we literally don't feel anything. Like if you have a near miss on the highway, you don't feel anywhere. I've had people break really bad news. I mean, I was there with my husband when he learned he had cancer. I was there with my husband when he learned he was dying of cancer. I'll tell you, you don't feel anything. You don't they show you crumbling to the ground and passing out. Normally you don't. I mean, yeah, I have had one time that happened where I heard that my husband nearly was killed in a terrible construction accident. I did feel my knees get weak, but I didn't really feel feelings. My knees started getting weak and I was collapsing. So that's why you're not feeling anything. Chances are though, Kate, if you sat with it and waited, the feeling will come in behind. You'll know in hours, maybe a day or two, what you're really feeling. But that's why you can't respond that fast. Yeah, breathing, Sandra, does really help us center for sure. Absolutely, it does. I'm doing that deliberately. I'm activating your parasympathetic system so that you are moving out of a fearful state. You notice that I was rattling and really talking fast because I get nervous before these. And even doing that, I hope I seem a little calmer and slower. I know it helped re-regulate me just doing that. So, Garth, you said it's frustrating not being able to put to words, not being able to put words to feelings. Yeah, it is frustrating. That's why I strongly, strongly, strongly urge you to go to that reference link in my link in my bio. It's near the bottom. And I will, after this is over, I promise you, the first thing I will do is I will add the updates to these feeling sheets. There's two of them. One is from Atlas of the Heart, Brene Brown's worksheet, which I love, love, love. And the second one is by Tom Drummond's worksheet that's open source. That's fantastic. And what I'd like you to do, okay, I'm going to give you an exercise. Anybody who struggled to identify feelings, I want you to do this. Set on your watch or on your phone a timer that goes off a couple times a day, okay? It just make sure it goes off in times that you have a few minutes. Maybe you can go to the restroom, or maybe you're at home. When it goes off, I want you to look at the feeling list. And these feeling lists, by the way, are PDFs that you can keep on your mobile devices. And I want you to look at the feelings list and say, which of these am I feeling right now? And force yourself to pick 2 or 3. Force it. That's what I had to do. I used to give this exercise all the time to the male clients that come into my office because men tend to struggle a little more than women do. And I'm saying women don't struggle because I was struggling. But then I thought to myself, you know what? I'm giving this homework away all the time, but I don't know how well I would do with it. So, Garth, I did it. I started doing it myself and I thought, I suck at it. So don't feel alone. Even a psychologist sucked initially at this. So just use a feeling list. And as you get better at listing, like say you get to good at recognizing, oh, I'm a little lonely today, or oh, I feel a little awkward today, then you can get more nuanced, like lonely how, or irritated how, or angry how. And then you'll see all these like breakout lists, like frustrated, or I feel awkward, or I feel ashamed, or you'll just get better at it. It helps with practice, you'll get more sophisticated at this. So I just want to urge you. This is a like any other muscle that we've got to grow. This is the sad part about all of this is that this is stuff that we all need to learn. But has anyone given us training on that? I never got any training on it. If anything, I was told to shut down, make my feelings go away. I wasn't given the space to learn how to feel or learn what to do with them. So we all kind of this is probably something a lot of us aren't very good at, unfortunately. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, Kate, it is on that platform. I just can't talk about other platforms on this on this on this forum. I just can't. So thank you for saying that. Yeah, silent treatment. I will bring that, Thea. If you stick around, I will touch on that in about a couple more minutes. I don't want to get off this topic quite yet, but I'm happy to talk about what to do about the silence treatment in a few minutes. If you want to stick around and watch. Yeah, Phoenix, it is frustrating to realize that you're still scared to leave and that you're in freeze mode. It is hard. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Dion. When the day my husband died too, I was kind of frozen as well. I just sort of like, you know, was, I don't know. It's weird. You don't really know how you feel until it happens. And it is a very strange feeling. And it's not what I remember walking out of hospice. I mean, he was in hospice, so we knew we were dying. I remember walking out of hospice, not for sure how I felt. I just felt weird, numb, empty, just strange. But that's pretty typical for shock. And that's going to be the first emotional reaction you're going to feel. You may even shake. If you guys find yourself shaking really hard, like you're cold and your teeth are chattering, that's all a part of a literal shock experience. Your body it has prioritized different organs and has pulled blood out of certain places. So that's why you're cold. You get really cold when you're in an extreme state of shock. Yeah, absolutely. It does teach us to stuff our feelings, and it is nothing worse than for men. Men are really taught that. I mean, it is the indoctrination when men get around feelings is awful, awful. We are not even good at it in our own homes. One of the things I really hope to do in the club is to talk about how to help our children with their feelings, especially when they're dealing with a toxic parent. Because one of the things that we inadvertently do is when there's any show, excuse me, when there's any show of like of their like rage or intense like if anger is starting to move to acting out, we accidentally often shut the anger down in order to control the acting out. No, we can separate them. It's very easy to separate feelings from actions. You can say one thing I did with my sons, and I had 3 sons, was I would say, "Yes, you're very upset. It's okay to be upset. I would be upset about that too, but we're not allowed to call names here and we're not allowed to hit each other." So I would literally like say, "This is the boundary. This is how what appropriate behavior looks like. This is what I hear you feeling. It's okay to feel those things, but we don't act like that here." So it's very easy to do that, but we often in the moment we're awkward. That's back to our lack of self awareness. If we don't know what we're feeling, and then they're doing something that's upsetting and triggering us and scaring us, then we're going to shut them down because we don't know how to deal with ourselves. And then we end up not teaching them. That's a good teaching moment, how to have feelings, but not act on feelings. What was that technique we just did called? I made it up. Alina, yeah, Kate, it's my own creation. That's again, I hope, I know I keep plugging this, but I'm super excited. I'm super excited about this club. I'm super excited. It comes out of what worked for me. And it also comes out of what I love to do. I love to teach, but I'm finding doing this like this is just not working. I really need to focus in on people and people that I get to know. So that's why I'm unpacking these 2 club membership tiers come April 3rd. So if you're interested and you want to learn more, please make sure that you sign up today through the link in the bio. I'm super excited about this. But yeah, I want to do this on a regular basis. I'd like to do this several times a month with the club members. We'll do this that I actually then they will be tape recorded so that then you can play it back whenever you want to. You can refer to it. So it will be like a library of all these resources. Yeah, Phoenix, it often is. We often get into a habit of being the one who comforts. And that's another dangerous point. Thank you for bringing that up. And guys, thanks for likes and sharing this. I know I'm really losing numbers because we're so into this topic that we're losing ranking in on the platform. So if you wouldn't mind like liking this and sharing this would be really helpful. But yeah, it's when we're caretaking others, we have to sort of go into hoping we have to help others, which means we put ourselves on the side. I think men do this a lot too, in that provider standpoint of I want to be strong and take care of my family so then I don't have space to show up emotionally. That's actually not true, but we make that assumption they're mutually exclusive. And we actually kind of do it to each other too. Like I know that when I was caretaking my husband who was ill, I went to group therapy. That's how I got support because I didn't really feel like I could say to the world, yeah, no, I'm really tired. It's really hard to show up and make all the meals and handle the house and deal with the kids and take care of everything because he's ill and dying. I mean, how do you say that? Because people look at you like you are lucky. You get to live. Yeah, I get to live, but I'm watching all of this collapse and I'm having a reaction. And where can I have space to have a reaction? So it is really when we kind of get into those positions, whether it is we're taking care of someone who's more emotionally immature, or whether maybe we have something like that going on in our life where we're caretaking for an elderly parent, or we've got someone with a disability or someone with a something. It can be really hard where we don't have the space for us to deal with our own emotions for sure. And it's to be continued. I didn't miss your comment about the stages of grief. I did. I just want to wait for another couple minutes before I get into side topics on that. When people are gone, that's when it hits and the feeling yeah, it is. That's often when it does happen, Fierce Girl, for sure. So, yeah, so how do you join? It's through a link in the bio, and then I haven't rolled out the features of it. It's gonna start April 3rd. So the end of this month, I'm gonna kick it off. There's 2 tiers to the club. The lower tier is more support, direct contact with me, and some resources. And the higher tier will be the classwork, breath work, lives, weekly lives, all of that. So 2 tiers to it. So Garth says, I'm working on emotions of the emotion wheel, but I don't know what they truly mean in my body. Yeah, Garth, thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate that. I would recommend that when you do this, when you identify an emotion, like say, you're feeling angry, stop on that feeling and ask where you feel it in your body. I can give you some hints. They found anger tends to be connected with the heart or vascular system. So you may find that you feel that you hear the heart pounding. Maybe it's pounding in your head. Maybe your face feels flushed. Maybe you feel like something kind of like a hotness in your chest. But chances are it's going to be a vascular reaction to this. Fear is something that activates the sympathetic system. That's going to activate shutdown. So your digestion may stop. You may have dry mouth. You may feel cold and shaky. So fear is going to feel more like stillness or paralysis or locked or something like that. Jealousy and shame often kick in. Self-consciousness, that's maybe more like wanting to yourself like hide or get out of sight or no one to see you. Those you'll feel like feel a recoil. Disgust tends to be more, in fact, you saw if you watched a micro expression, I just felt it, my lip curled. Disgust tends to make us feel jerk back, like ugh, we feel a repulsion. We want to like avoid. It's more of a kind of visceral, startled feeling. So that's a start. I think Brene Brown's, and I haven't looked at it closely. I own it, but I haven't slowed down to really look at it. But you might want to get Atlas of the Heart and then work through it because she really digs into the research to each of these emotions, and you might find that super, super helpful. But it's a great thing to do because here's the thing. And Garth, I know you're not new to my platform because you and I have talked back before. When you get better at this as a man, your relationship with your partner is going to get so much better. So much better. So men, if you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling like your needs are not being primary in the relationship, chances are this is missing. And if you put more energy into this and get to know this and show up this way with your partner, you're going to like so improve this relationship. You'll be shocked. It's like the keys to a really better relationship with a woman, for sure. And I'm not saying women don't need to get better at this because we do, but I'm just saying it really can bring an intimacy. Yeah, you can feel anger in your head. Absolutely. It can become a migraine or give you a headache. Absolutely. I really believe that. Very much so. Okay, so those of you who've been waiting and you had a couple questions on the outside edge, so let's talk about those now. Thank you so much for this. The next time I'm here, I'm going to tell you this, and then we'll talk about the other issues. The next time I do this kind of a live is my last one, and it's in 2 weeks, and it will be tapping. So if you've ever wanted to learn practical grounding techniques to soothing, self-comfort and soothing, that's the last one, and it will be in 2 weeks from today. So please join me for that. You can watch it on, again, the other platform that I cannot mention. I will have an advertisement go up on it for a day ahead so you know it's coming, but that will be the last one. I think it's the 23rd of March, and it's on tapping and other self-soothing kind of practices that we can do to help regulate emotional dysregulation. So, and then after that, I'll be really kind of focusing, ramping up my group membership where this will continue, but inside the group. All right. So the first question that came up was somebody said that they're having really bad flashbacks, I think. I'm trying to remember it. And I said, we'd wait. Oh yeah, no, that wasn't you, Phoenix. It was somebody else. And I said that we'd get to it. And thank you. I hope you're still here. And I'm sorry that we made you wait. While I'm looking for it, let me talk about grief and denial because I want to get to that too. It's to be continued. Yeah, the stages of grief there's 6 stages, and they are shock, denial, bartering, depression, acceptance, and making meaning. Now, we say that there's 6 stages. Please don't think they happen like this polite, like neat stages that rolled out one after another. Oh, no. Imagine a messy ball of yarn that's in a bunch of knots. That's what grief looks like. It hits you when it hits you, and it hits you all together, or then you have these quiet periods and it hits you all together. It's not this nice, neat kind of experience. So, yeah, but denial is one of them for sure. Okay. Oh, here it is. Okay, Thea, you asked, you're being given the silent treatment as long as it's ever gone, and I'm freaking out. I want to give you some back history on why people who are toxic do silent treatments. Let's assume that you are not talking about someone who just gets emotionally dysregulated and doesn't know how to handle intensity, and they just shut down because they go flat and, like startled. We're going to assume that's not what's happening. We're going to assume that this is a punishment for something that you've done or threatened, or maybe it was a limit or something. You did something that sort of like challenged your partner, and now they've decided they're not going to speak to you as a way to sort of bring you back into compliance and to make sure that you know that you shouldn't have done that. Why do they do that? Well, they do that for that reason. That's punishment so that you will learn the lesson and not do that again. What do you do about it? Well, to know that it is manipulation is a first step. Recognize that this is cruel, that people who love you don't do these types of things, and that it's an effort to manipulate and control you. So control you around. The fact that you say I'm freaking out, and I totally get that because my ex used to do this to me all the time. I freaked out too. I understand that. But when we freak out, that means that we're under their power and control. That means it's working. It's an effective punishment. It's effective strategy. So how do you take the control out of their hand? The best way is to cease to see it as powerful. Okay, so they're pouting and they're like a toddler over in the corner saying, I'm not speaking to you. Okay, so they don't like it. It doesn't mean you need to change a single thing. It may have been you've been exactly right, whatever it is that you said or asked for or expected or what you drew a line around. Yes, it only is powerful because it has power on you or over you. The way to disempower it is to cease to have it be effective. So I would recommend that you breathe, use the techniques we talked about today, deep breathe, remind you that you're still okay, that this does not change one thing about you. Remind yourself that you are more than your relationship. You are more than this relationship. I know a lot of us, I did this, feel like our definition of self is dependent on us having a relationship and being a good partner. No, it actually doesn't. That's one thing I learned through all of this. You existed before this relationship came into your life. You will continue to exist after this relationship is out of your life. You're more than this relationship. This person's unwillingness to participate around a dynamic in the relationship is a choice they're making, and they're saying something to you that they only want the relationship on their terms. Do you want a relationship like that? I personally don't. So those are some things to think about. I know this is really tough. This is why I have that coursework called First Steps to Leaving a Narcissist. It helps you ask these types of questions and look at it from different angles. It gives you the same type of psychological questions. It gives you a workbook to work through it, to store your answers safely on a mobile device so it's private. So you might want to check out the course First Steps to Leaving a Narcissist. Yes, it will be over on that other platform. Absolutely. Yeah, it's the weird girl, weird Gina, the weird Gina. The way you learn to stop suppressing emotions is this very technique that I was talking through with Garth. By setting your alarm multiple times a day, taking that feeling sheet that you're going to find on my reference list, and asking yourself to find several feelings that you're feeling multiple times a day. And that will reteach you how to get in touch with your feelings. And then asking, like I shared with Garth, where are you experiencing in your body? And I kind of gave you some hints where you probably will experience based upon the way those emotions affect us physiologically based on the research. So that will give you a good starting point. Oh, thank you, Garth. I appreciate that. Yeah, sometimes fierce girl, our brains are protecting ourselves, and that's why we go numb. I think it's why we go numb in any type of traumatic situation. It's our brain saying, "Ooh, hey, we're going to triage and prioritize." And you know what? That food that we had for lunch, that's not a priority. That can sit there for a while. Nobody will die with food sitting in the stomach. Let's instead, we need to really give a lot of blood, a lot of oxygen going. So we're going to really focus on the oxygen, respiratory system, and the vascular system. That's what happens. It literally prioritizes and it sends blood to where it needs to. It's a really great system, actually. It's why we're still here. It works so well. But it works so well, it can work to our disadvantage sometimes too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sometimes, you guys are talking about the when you get post a relationship breakup and then you realize what the relationship was or what happened. I'm also 4 years out and I'm still processing stuff. I'm still making sense of stuff. And sometimes that hits me, makes me feel really ashamed, or stupid or embarrassed that I would allow that into my life. In fact, I just taped, it's going to be in 2 weeks today. I just taped a longer video called how could we be so stupid to miss the initial red flags in a relationship or the initial signs that this is a toxic relationship? And so I talk about why we don't see these things and why we put up with it. The very thing to get us attacked, I address in that video. That will be 2 weeks today. It will go live. But yeah, it was fascinating me digging into that and really kind of looking at some of the stuff that goes on behind that. So Ducky asks, is it normal to feel voiceless during or after narcissistic abuse? I've had a hard time speaking up for myself. My throat gets really tight. Yes, absolutely. There's a word for that. It's called selective mutism. You're struggling with selective mutism. That's common. I had it. It's awful. It's awful. I agree. Yeah, I'm severely struggling with people pleasing. Well, people pleasing, I don't like that term. I know that you may have heard the podcast with Tara and my I. She likes it. Tara, it's called Breaking Free with Kerry and Tara. She likes the terminology of codependency and codependent. I hate it. I think it's pathologizing. But the way to view it is that we've been abusive people don't deal with their emotions. They don't. They offload them. Their interior misery, their interior world is funneled to their relationships and they work it out in their relationships. That's why they confess, they project. Are you mad at me? Well, they're like screaming at you. They're mad at you. Or they'll say, "Are you cheating?" No, they're cheating on you, and that's why they're asking you. So you'll see this projection, but it's really hard to know how to speak up and show up for ourselves. And it's very easy when that's the dynamic, it's very easy for us to learn to give in, don't rock the boat. We learn to take care of the relationship because we just don't want all of this drama. The way to like have it be easier is just to disconnect and become easygoing and to make sure. I mean, I saw myself literally like, okay, how high do you want me to jump? I'll jump that high for him. It was awful, but it was survival. It was definitely a survival technique for me. Very, very much so. So, Phoenix, you're wondering if some of what you're experiencing is an emotional flashback. Yeah, any advice? Yeah, the same advice that I would say for any type of other flashback is observe it, you know, maybe take notes about it. Don't judge it. Don't be hard on yourself for having it. It's not a sign. I want to say this again for everybody. Flashbacks are not a sign that you've not done healing. Please hear me on this. It's not a sign that you've not done healing. It's just a sign that something somehow, in some way, think of it more like an anniversary date. Do you judge yourself for having anniversary dates? For me, last week was an anniversary I learned my husband was dying 8 years ago. I was sad last week. I don't judge myself for that. That makes sense. So in the same way that you have an emotional flashback, just be observing about that. Make note of it and then create space of, is there something you need to do? Maybe it would be helpful to talk to somebody about it. Maybe you need to do some kind of closure ceremony for yourself. Maybe you just need to speak the truth into yourself about it. I know that I'm aging. I'm aware that I'm aging. I hate it. I'm unhappy with a lot of the ways that I feel lately. But you know what? I'm not stopping it. It's not going to go away. It's not going away. I mean, from here on out, I only get older. So I'm learning to like try to like not hear the narcissist in my head talk about my age because he was really into 20 something year olds. So that messes with you. When you're a woman and you want to be loved and desired, it really messes with you. So I'm trying to just say to myself, my age does not make me less lovable. Yeah, it may not make me visible in society, but it doesn't change my value. That doesn't change. My value is the determination I give to it. And it's the determination those who love me give to it, not anybody else. But that's how I deal with my flashbacks. When I hear them, I say that to myself in my head over and over. Yeah, it's tough though. I admit this is a lot of hard work. Yeah, Ducky. So you've had not a lot of space to grieve. You're right. It is a lot of, and it takes a lot out of us when we're the caretaker. Yeah. So Angie said to the Thea who's struggling with a silent treatment. This is I love this. Angie suggests Thea that you see it as a break from the toxicity. Yeah, that's another way to shift it. I do like that. Yeah. Ducky, part make sure you come back in 2 weeks, Ducky, when we talk about tapping and other grounding methods that we will get into how to regulate. We will talk about how to regulate and really consider becoming a member of the club. I think that you'd find it super helpful. Super helpful. Yeah, Ryan, I agree. It does help to detach from the narcissistic person. Just getting space really, really helps a lot. All right. I want to take a look at last few comments that come in here. And yeah. Phoenix, email me on the side. Would you text me? DM me for that? Yeah, absolutely, Beth. Beth says, I have toxic in laws. How do I cope knowing that they really don't care about how bad they hurt the two of us? Yeah, that's true. Narcissistic in laws and families do not care how much they are going to hurt you. They just want things your way. Absolutely. Yeah, the way that you cope is the same way that I was giving the advice around the silent treatment is you detach from it. Place less importance. I know for me, there was times in my life where I knew that something that I was just wasn't going to be included. The family wouldn't include me, and I had to be okay with that. That for my own healthiness, that meant that I would lose that connectiveness, and I had to be okay with when I, set up the two options. Do I want a toxic relationship that I feel like I'm suffocated and can't, and I'm mad all the time, or do I really want to like preserve my peace and protect my boundaries, even if it pisses them off and I lose that relationship? I had to say like, yeah, I guess it's okay if it goes in that direction. And it's not easy. Absolutely. It's not easy for sure. So, hey, Garth, I saw you. Your number one share for all this. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Last question, Ducky. How do we recommend a narcissist projection? They're so confident, whatever they're accusing you of, it's difficult to fight it. Don't. Have you heard of Jade? Don't justify, attack, defend, or explain. Don't. This is the hard work. I'm going to give you one big last tidbit today, and then we'll close it off. The hard work is this: whenever they do something that's very unfair and they level it against you, first of all, what they're leveling against you is true about themselves. They're revealing a weakness, insecurity about themselves, and they're doing it to level. Imagine somehow they think you're higher than them, and they feel like really bad, so they're going to cut you off at your feet to drop you so that they make you at the same level. How do they do that? They accuse you of the most horrific stuff so that then you feel bad, you react, and they're like, see, I knew they weren't that good. See, if they could be that, see, look how bad they reacted. That means I'm not alone. They're no better than I am. That's what's happening. So the best way is just not to bite. Now, how do you deal with the fact that this is unfair? What's being said about you is untrue, unfair, and hurtful. Well, by you telling yourself the truth, by you surrounding people who can tell you the truth, like being in the club, for example, by you saying, like I'm saying right now, Ducky, that's not true. It's not true. And you can know it's not true, and you can get affirmation from those around you that it's not true. That's how we combat it, is that we, just like Rayanne said, you learn to detach yourself from the emotional context of this relationship. You say to yourself, this person is an unreliable narrator. Just like if you're watching a TV show and you know whoever's telling you a story is telling it skewed. So you're like, everything you hear, you're like, I don't really believe that or buy that. That's what you do here. You're like, this person's got really serious ulterior motives. They are not in my best interest. They're not going to tell me the truth. Then you just discount it. You just don't put much credibility in it. Thank you for saying that, Rayanne. That was super helpful. Super helpful. Yeah, you find your peace inside yourself, Alda. I agree. Yes, it will make them angry. That's a warning, guys. I do want you to hear that. Be careful in what you express. Be careful because they will get upset. That is upsetting to them to have you be non-reactive. So make sure you react in a way that's wise and promotes safety until you can be safe. Yeah, fierce girl. What I explained was Jade. Don't justify, don't attack, don't defend, and don't explain. That's the perfect response to Darvo. Oh, hey, Ben. Darvo is when you deny, attack, reverse offender, and you reverse the victim role. The person they see you as being victim for bringing the issue up. They like, no, you hurt me by bringing it up. That's how they they reverse the roles there. I'm glad, Ducky. I'm glad that was helpful with you me answering that. And I appreciate you being here. I've seen you be here before. And thank you, guys. We're going to wrap this up today. It's been amazing hanging out with you for this period of time. Please be sure to check out the references in a few minutes. I'll get that feeling emotional list up in there for you. And then also check out what I've got coming up. And I'm super, super excited. You guys rock. Have a good weekend. I'll see you back Tuesday. We'll be talking about another topic. I haven't decided yet, but I'll make sure it's loaded and fun about narcissism. So we'll have a great debate on Tuesday. No, actually, we won't. You won't see next week. So I'll be back the following week. Sorry about that. I will be out of town next week, but I'll be back in 2 weeks. All right, guys, you're the best. Take care. Bye-bye.